Marshall. The Watch today is brought to you by Honey Bun. Big thanks to Honey Bun.
When all is done and said, me love me shorty bread. You love your shorty what? Me love me shorty bread. And it was made by Honey Bun. Me love me shorty bread.
Listeners to Love 101 FM are advised that the views and opinions expressed in this program are not necessarily those of Love 101 FM.
Hello and welcome to the Morning Watch on Love 101 FM. I'm your host, Stokely Marshall. And a special welcome to our listeners on love101.org. And if you are overseas and on the move, US listeners can access us at 712-832-8001. And if you are in the UK, 0330-332-6541, or join us via the Love 101 FM app that can be downloaded from the Google Play Store or the Apple Store. You can also join us on Love 101 FM, Facebook, and YouTube Live. In the main watch today, doctors and shorter contracts, impact on the health sector. And in the second watch, Jamaica's building industry, the structural integrity of buildings, including high-rises. For our Facebook question, we ask, how confident are you in the integrity of our high-rise buildings? Well, share your responses on our Facebook or YouTube, Love 101 FM Jamaica Live, and also WhatsApp comments and voice notes to 876-997-3125 using hashtag The Morning Watch. We'll share your comments later on the program, but first, as I quote.
This morning's I quote, "The time is always right to do what is right." Martin Luther King Jr.
Indeed, Shavani, indeed. The time is always right to do what is right. The main watch will be back after the break.
When all is done and said, me love me shorty bread. You love your shorty what? You love me shorty bread. And it was made by Honey Bun. You love me shorty bread.
Here is a reminder from Love 101, the family station, as we face the COVID-19 pandemic. Masks are effective only when used in combination with frequent hand cleaning with soap and water or alcohol-based solutions. Wear a mask that is lined with 2 or more layers. When taking it off, ensure you dispose of it properly. I'm Nigel Wilkinson from Love 101, reminding you to protect yourself while protecting others. Stay safe and keep it locked on Love 101, the family station.
"49 years later and still going strong, Under the Law helps you to know your rights and how the laws of Jamaica can help you defend those rights. The program is brought to you on Mondays by the Bank of Jamaica, building an inclusive economy, and on Tuesdays by the Ministry of Labor and Social Security, providing opportunity, stability, and social protection. Under the Law, Mondays and Tuesdays at 6:20 a.m., 2:55, 6:45, and 9:10 p.m. on Love 101 FM.
Here is a reminder from Love 101, the family station, as we face the COVID-19 pandemic. Be kind to address stigma during this pandemic. Share the latest facts and avoid exaggerating stories. Show solidarity with affected persons and tell the stories of persons who have experienced the virus. I am Kimberly Levy from Love 101, reminding you to protect yourself while protecting others. Stay safe and keep it locked on Love 101, the family station.
When all is done and said, me love me shorty bread. You love me shorty what? You love me shorty bread. And it was made by honey bun. You love me shorty bread.
Hello and welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokely Marshall. We are now in the main watch. Now, we here in Jamaica, we have been dealing with the matter of our doctors and their terms of engagement. And the issue is, can Jamaica afford to lose the services of the over 150 doctors in the public system? Now, imagine, doctors not being available to work in the public health system when you most need them. And especially at this time when there are so many more challenges now to the health system than we have had before. We have online this morning to discuss this. We have Dr. Mindy Fitzhenley. She is the president of the Medical Doctors Association. And we also have online with us as well Dr. Brian James. He is the president-elect of the Medical Association of Jamaica. Dr. James and Dr. Fitzhenley, good morning. How are you both?
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Good morning. I'm doing very well, thanks.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. And I'm going to start with you, Dr. Fitzhenley. You have been under the spotlight for a little bit now in your defense of your colleagues who you have indicated ought to have received contracts for services rendered which are more in keeping with what you are indicating they ought to be. But I want to go back a little bit, not just looking at the current issue that you're dealing with. Are more doctors entering the profession now than there are jobs for them to fill in the public health sector? Because that appears to be an issue which came up recently in the conversation. What's your response to that, Dr. Fitzhenley?
Yes, based on the figures that have been published, there are an increase in doctors that are coming out of the UII medicine program. And we also have other doctors that are in the system that are what we would call locum doctors. So essentially they have trained elsewhere and have now come back to Jamaica. The persons, for example, who have trained in Cuba, in Russia, and other countries. And so those doctors also are required to work. And so based on the numbers there's just not enough spaces that the government has provided for these doctors to be able to work.
Okay, and based on what is apparently a reality, I'm not telling you to wear a different hat, Dr. Fitzhenley, but I'm just asking you for your reaction here. Can you in any way see why the government would have taken the position that they took before? Because their justification seems to include that they just don't have enough vacancies or enough posts or positions for doctors to fill, hence the 6-month contract that were initially spoken about prior to your ardent defense of your colleagues. What is your response to that, if any?
It's clear that the fact that they gave them the 6-month contract means that they're needed on the ground. So what we did not want to happen, which we know was going to be our reality, is that persons would get repeated 6-month contracts in an effort to not have to pay out the benefits that are due to them. So we have people who have gotten 6-month contract, 6-month contract, 6-month contract, 6-month contract. So they've worked for 2 years, but they have nothing to show for it. And that is not something that was previously agreed on in our negotiations. Our heads of agreement is very, very clear that you are to receive a 2 or a 3-year contract. And in fact, these 6-month contracts that were the only 6-month contract that anybody was supposed to receive was to staff the field hospitals because it was for a specific period of time. And we understood that. But what they were doing was now applying that agreement, which was only for March or April, and hiring people against that agreement for July. And so that was a clear breach of the heads of agreement. But the fact that they were going to hire them for 6 months knows that they know 100% that they need the doctors to be underground in the hospitals to help. So if that is the case, then they need to do their needs analysis quickly, show that they need the doctors, and employ them. You can't be staffing hospitals with 6 months contracts just so that you can have the numbers, but then to the detriment of the doctor. That's not fair, and we would not stand for that.
How many doctors are still unemployed, and when might they be employed?
Well, right now, the GMD is proud to report that we have gotten a total of 24 of the 6-month contracts amended. We have, up to yesterday, the last count was that 37 doctors were rehired. So we have 58 doctors out of the batch of 95 outgoing senior health officers who are still without a job. So these would be the doctors who were just hailed as COVID heroes who are now unemployed. But there's also other doctors who are unemployed from before. So it's quite a large number when you look at it in totality.
And these doctors are spread across the length and breadth of the island in relation to the public hospitals?
That's correct.
And what about the University Hospital of the West Indies? Are you including those doctors or only those outside of the UHWI system?
We're including those as well in terms of the unemployed doctors because University Hospital is our training hospital. And so we have specialist doctors now who would have finished their program and have no job. For example, we have someone who has finished neurosurgery and is without a job. And I can't think of any hospital that does not require a neurosurgeon, but yet still he's unemployed.
Are the private hospitals absorbing some of these numbers? Because I haven't heard much of that discussion in the public domain.
Well, some persons would opt to work privately when there is no space in the public system because they still need to feed their family. But we, as the GMDA, represent doctors that are in the public sphere.
I see. I'm just asking if on a wider scale, if some of those who can't find employment in the government system are seeking other avenues of employment, maybe at a private hospital. And there are a few in Jamaica. But I want to bring in Dr. James. Dr. James, as the president-elect of the Medical Association of Jamaica, how does all this strike you, sir?
It strikes me as being detrimental to the system overall. Separate and apart from what it does for the individual doctor, it is definitely not in the interest of healthcare delivery to offer people 6-month contracts. That doesn't work. First and foremost, as Mindy was alluding to, there is a shortage of doctors in Jamaica, right? According to the WHO figures, we have, certainly up to about 5 years ago, we had 9 doctors per 10,000 population. And this is below the average. This is the average that I saw in the WHO document was like 13 doctors per 10,000 persons. And I'm
Okay, we're
aware
not
of.
here at this time. I'm going to ask to hold that thought, Dr. James. Stay with us.
Okay,
We'll be right back on the morning walk.
sorry.
Phoenix Health and Vision Center, 65 Main Street, St. Anne's Bay, near the St. Anne's Bay Health Center. The only full care eye service center in St. Anne.
The time by
Phoenix Health and Vision Center
is
7:15.
I always do my best to stay in control of my expenses. So with Flow, I added my mobile to my home internet service and elevated my savings. I get 50% off my mobile plan each month. Yeah, man, I get a simple, predictable mobile bill of $1,600 plus GCT and never sign a contract nor made a deposit. And you can get this too. Add your mobile to your Flow home internet for elevated savings of 50% off your mobile plan each month. Visit the Flow store or discoverflow.co to sign up today.
We're all in the Sagicor bonus savings. We're all in Sagicor Bank bonus savings account, the pooled savings account from Sagicor Bank. We're all in bonus savings account pays you monthly interest plus a bonus each month to top up your savings. In the Sagicor bonus savings, the bigger the pool of savings, the bigger the bonus. Together, everyone earns more with Sagicor bonus savings. We're all in. We're all in with Sagicor Bank bonus savings account.
My daughter calls me the
bestest dad ever.
And as her father, I have to live up to that. She looks to me for everything. But I have other responsibilities too. As a track coach, I have to guide my team to run on the track and not into trouble, cause plenty of that out there. My days don't stop, and neither can I. So I need something to take care of me while I take care of everybody else. That drink is Malta. And it tastes good too. Big up yourself, Malta.
Full of life. When all is done and said, I love me shorty bread. You love me shorty what? You love me shorty bread. And it was made by honey bun. You love me shorty bread.
Welcome back to the morning walk. I'm your host, Stokely Marshall, and we are in the main walk. We're having a discussion here with Mindy Henley and Dr. Brian James. Dr. Brian James is the president we are looking at the matter of doctors and 6 month contracts
that they were recently being offered by the government of Jamaica, a very challenging situation which the doctors have had to be dealing with in recent times. Now, Dr. James, I want to ask this quickly before we continue, because the impression being given is that there aren't enough jobs for these doctors. That's the impression being given. However, you have indicated that there is a shortage of doctors. So which is it really? Is there a shortage of doctors?
It is fairly easy. It is really to
please, sir.
Yeah, it is fairly easy to reconcile those two positions. So the number of posts that exist in the medical system in Jamaica, in the hospital. I'm hearing you. Are you not hearing me?
Yes, we're hearing you. Go ahead.
Yes, I was saying the number of posts that exist in the medical system, in the hospital, the public health delivery system, it is based on calculations that were made maybe 40 years ago. So the same number of posts that were there to serve 1.7 or just about 2 million people is the same number of posts. Sorry, it's the same number of posts that currently exist. What it means is that the number of
I'm
the
so sorry, Dr. James. I am not hearing you very well. I don't know if it is something on my end or if it's the studio or some
No,
technical
we're hearing him
glitch that
clearly. It's
is
he's
trying to
coming
come from
across.
your end. I
He's
don't know.
good.
I
But
don't think he's
the
hearing
thing
you
I'm hearing
actually.
you indicate, well, let me not say what I heard because I didn't hear much of what you said. But is there a shortage or is there no shortage? If I could ask that question again.
There is a shortage. There is,
There
without
is
a
a
doubt,
shortage.
there is a shortage. And I was trying to explain that the number of posts available, that's the same number of posts that were available from in the 1970s. And therefore, you will find that since the population has increased quite significantly during that time, the number of doctors required would be greater than that number of posts. And it was short at that time anyway. So you will find, and that is why there are so many contracts available, because there is recognition that we are short. As Mindy was saying, the fact that these doctors received the contracts in the first place is testimony to the fact that they were needed. They wouldn't have, just employed somebody for employment's sake. The problem here is giving people a contract for 6 months, and then you're going to end up renewing it 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times. You end up with a doctor being working in the system for 4 or 5 years under those uncertain conditions. And I'm looking at it from the point of view of the system, right? Mindy is responsible for looking at it from the point of view of the doctor. And there is a lot to actually say from that point of view. But the system is at a major disadvantage. The system suffers because of these shorter contracts. One, it means repeated periods of recruitment, selection, and administrative activities each time a group of contracts come up for renewal. I don't know if any one of us know, but the process of renewing a contract in the government system is a very, very difficult one. It has multiple steps. It takes a very long time. There are doctors who work with me whose contracts expired almost a year ago, and they are still. Just yesterday, I had to sign the PERs, the performance evaluation reports, for the 4th time. That is how the system works. So if this has to happen every 6 months, right, then the system, because of its inherent inefficiencies, the system becomes unstable. And the doctors have to take time off from work to sort out contractual issues. And there is a problem. Certainly I do, in my position as head of Department of Anesthesia at Bustamante, I have problems planning for efficient service delivery. And so the entire reason d'etre of the system is compromised by the fact that every day people are trying to get their contracts renewed and their contracts sorted out. We cannot offer good service under those circumstances. The other thing is that you can only offer good service as an organization if you have satisfied and happy employees. No organization can function efficiently if there is suboptimal staff satisfaction. So in addition to the requirements for the tools to perform their job, doctors of every category, including the juniors and us seniors, need to be free from worries about their tenure and about job security. It is impossible to make medium-term plans about your future if you have no idea whether or not you have a job. Will you be able to service your student loan? Will you be able to retain your accommodations or take care of your transportation needs. So performance on the job is negatively affected if the employees do not have good answers to these questions, and the system suffers. So from the point of view of the ministry and the government and the regional health authorities, it is better to offer the people the contracts that there was an agreement to offer them. There is a black and white agreement that says that people will get 2 or 3 year contracts. I do not understand why there is an argument right now. There is an agreement. Are you still there, or did I say all of that to myself?
We're still here. We're still here, Dr. James.
Right. So that's really the point, the perspective from which I look at this particular issue.
I know what. No, I want to. No, not at all. In fact, what I'm trying to find out, Dr. James, is
yes, Dr. James, you were saying something before Stokely was saying something.
Forgive us, Dr. James. We're having some technical glitches this morning, so please forgive us. However, what I'm
there is a significant delay, but yes, I'd made my point.
We're so concerned about providing security of tenure. If we're concerned about providing security of tenure, why even offer them contracts such as 2 and 3 year contracts? Why not just have them on probation for a period of time and then offer them long-term employment? Why this fixation on contracts, if I could use the term fixation?
Well, that is what I was trying to explain to you before. The explanation for that lies in the fact that the number of positions available is predicated on history, on what was the reality in the 1970s. Okay? Therefore, there aren't enough posts, and the process of increasing the number of posts is a very, very long and tedious one. Right? So they have been trying to do this for decades. So and it is again testimony to how slowly the administrative wheels turn in our country and in a lot of other countries, I must admit.
Hear you loud and clear. Where do we go from here, Dr. Fitzhenley and Dr. James, starting with Dr. Fitzhenley and then in Dr. James in a second or two. Dr. Fitzhenley, where do we go from here?
Well, what we need urgently is the needs analysis to show that these doctors are indeed needed in the system. Just as Dr. James is saying, this exercise, this formal exercise, has not occurred for many years. And so once you do the needs analysis, then you'll be able to show why you need an increased number of posts, and doctors can be hired against those. So that is the next step, without a doubt.
And Dr. James?
Well, first and foremost, I think the government.
Give you the last word, Dr. James.
Yeah, firstly, I think the government has to understand that if there is an agreement, then it really has to stick to it in order to keep peace in the system. But as Mindy says, I think that is really the important step that needs to be taken to look at the number of posts that are available and accelerate the steps to increase the number of posts to satisfy what the WHO says is an appropriate number of doctors per 10,000 patients. And then things will move a bit more smoothly after that.
Have to leave it there this morning. I want to thank both Dr. James and Dr. Fitzhenry for being on air with us today. Thank you for your time. Thank you, listeners. We do apologize for the technical challenges. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this break.
JN Auto Loan, helping you on your journey. Roll out and make a statement in your brand new vehicle.
The time by JN will help you find a way is
7:31.
Me a forward! Is where you going? What you mean? Me get my vaccine so me can touch the road now. Touch road? You know your ears hard. The health people said this is only the first dose and we need 2 doses to be fully protected. Eh? What you mean? What me mean? We're waiting for the second dose, Mr. Sir. So you try turn your yard and go and follow the protocols. Wear your mask, wash your hand, and keep your distance from other people. Get vaccinated, get back to life. A message from the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
Colgate Triple Action. 3 benefits for a deep clean. As a mother, you always want to give the best to your family and to make them happy. With Colgate Triple Action, you give them 3 reasons to smile. Cavity protection, whiter teeth, and fresh breath. A unique formula with a minty flavor they will love. Colgate Triple Action. Find it at your favorite store.
When all is done and said, me love me shorty bread. You love your shorty what? Me love me shorty bread. And it was made by honey bun. Me love me shorty bread.
We preach the gospel through all type of forms. Our delivery not
On the Shout Egg and the Journey production presents DJ Nicholas's Abnormal Decibels album launch Saturday, July 10 at 10 p.m. live on Loud 101 FM Radio, Facebook, and YouTube. Also live on DJNicholas.net at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Sponsored by Bulwark Insurance Agency Limited, ABT Promotions, Gallimore Motor Group, and Love 101. Don't miss it.
Abnormal.
Marshall, let's take a look at the newspaper to see what Jamaicans and others are saying and doing. And I will start with the Daily Gleaner. We have on the front page of the Gleaner, house cleaning. House cleaning. Parliamentarians reported for illicit enrichment, false statutory declarations. And we have here on the front page of the Daily Observer, NWA takes charge, state agency to undertake cleanup in aftermath of tropical storm Elsa. And there is a bit of disturbing news, which many of you may have heard, many listeners may have heard by now. It is reported that Haitian President Jovenel Moïse was assassinated, and the first lady of that country, his wife, injured in the attack. And this is being said by the interim prime minister. So that's more, we'll definitely be hearing more about this later, I'm sure. Haiti's president Jovenel Moïse assassinated First Lady injured in attack, interim Prime Minister says, our condolences to President Moise's family, and we hope that the matters in Haiti can be resolved in very short order. Well, of course, coming up next, we'll read for you some of the feedback from our Facebook and WhatsApp question, which is, how confident are you in the integrity of our high-rise buildings? If you haven't done so, leave your responses on our Facebook or YouTube, Love 101 FM Jamaica Live, and also WhatsApp comments and voice notes to 876-997-3125 using hashtag The Morning Watch. We'll be right back.
When all is done and said, me love me shorty bread. You love me shorty what? You love me shorty bread. And it was made by honey bun. You love me shorty bread.
I am a man, yes. Strong man.
Hey man, your favorite Wednesday drive time 5:30 p.m. show celebrate 8 years anniversary. So stick and stay with the family station this Wednesday, July 7, here inside the mailbox for our post-anniversary celebration. We will throw things all the way back to July 2013 until now. And our first ever mailbox guest will be joining the fun. Yes, there'll also be giveaways, so ensure you are tuned in to the program designed for men with guests who are men, hosted by men. After 8 years, and it's aired every Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. with two hosts you have grown to love, Pastor Courtney Morrison, yours truly, and Kevin Bailey, right here on Love 101, the family station. Monday after 8 years.
We preach the gospel through all type of forms. I want to live for nothing.
On the Shout Aiken the Dirty production presents DJ Nicholas's Abnormal Decibels album launch Saturday, July 10 at 10 p.m. live on Loud 101 FM Radio, Facebook, and YouTube. Also live on DJNicholas.net at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Sponsored by Bulwark Insurance Agency Limited, ABT Promotions, Gallimore Motor Group, and Loud 101. Don't miss it.
Abnormal.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokely Marshall. Let's join Shivani for a look at how our friends on social media answer today's question. How confident are you in the integrity of our high-rise buildings? Any responses so far, Shivani?
Not seeing any comments right now, but as soon as they come in, then I'll let you know.
Okay, definitely, because sometimes we do get comments after this particular segment here. Sometimes well into the second watch. Well, let's go right into the second watch. Buildings collapsing sometimes, or evidence of lack of structural integrity. Our neighbors to the north in the USA, in the state of Florida, there was a recent occurrence where a part of a building collapsed. Unfortunately, many persons still can't be accounted for. Some have died. We here in Jamaica, we are, addressing many instances where persons would like to build higher and higher rise buildings. And we're talking about, in some cases, underground parking. We're talking about pools on the top of some of these buildings. And whilst the architecture is great and we admire the work of the engineers, the question can arise, what would happen if there were to be an unfortunate event connected with the lack of integrity structurally of some of these buildings or partial lack of integrity? Is the structural integrity of our buildings of any concern? Should we be worried? We have online this morning to discuss this very important subject. Mr. Lenworth Kelly, he's the president of the Incorporated Master Builders Association of Jamaica. We also have online today Mr. Robin Baston, an architect. Mr. Kelly, Mr. Baston, good morning to you both.
Morning, Stokely. Morning, Robin.
Great having you both. Now, we know that you're not going to have incidences like what happened at the Champlain building in the United States of America happening every day. So I don't want to let it seem as if we're making more out of this than needs to be. However, and I'm sure there's an investigation taking place there, so we're not even making any comments on that incident per se, or that situation per se. However, having seen what has happened, it does raise the question in the minds of some persons: could this ever happen to a building in which I am living?
When all is done and said, me love me shorty bread. You love your shorty what? You love me shorty bread. And it was made by honey bun. You love me shorty bread.
This is the soothing sound of your finances being handled by Grace Kennedy Financial Group. And this? It's actually the relaxing noise of your car and home insurance, handled by experts you can trust. Trust Grace Kennedy Financial Group to do your banking, insurance, investments, money services, and more gracefully. Get to know us at GraceKennedyFinancialGroup.com.
With their versatility and a timeless appeal, tiles can give color, texture, and a fabulous finishing touch to any space. And at Active Home Center, we have the best selection of tiles at affordable prices. Shop a wide selection of floor and wall tiles to add style and personality to your bathroom, kitchen, living room, and even your outdoors. Come in and let our experts show you how to make your designs come alive with the right tiles. Visit us at 84 Constant Spring Road. Active Home Center. More savings, more choices.
The Students Loan Bureau turns 50 and it's a golden celebration. Over the years, we've transformed dreams, accelerated change, and contributed to our nation's development.
With SLB, I was able to finance my future, and now my daughter can chase her own dreams.
The Students Loan Bureau has been part of so many success stories, and we are proud to spend the next 50 years promoting equal access to brighter futures. Thank you, Jamaica, for entrusting us with your dreams and for 50 stellar years.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokely Marshall. We are in the second watch, and we do apologize to our listeners for those challenges we had a moment ago. Now, we have as our guest in the second watch, Lenworth Kelly, president of the Incorporated Master Builders Association of Jamaica, and we also have Robin Baston, an architect, and we're looking at the whole matter of the structural integrity of buildings and what are some of the things that we must expect. Well, Jamaica's building industry, the structural integrity of buildings, including high-rises. Now, let's jumping right back into it. We know that there is legislation forthcoming in relation to how to treat with who can construct what types of buildings in Jamaica. To look even wider than just buildings, we have situations where roads are built, and then you drive on the road one day and you see a portion of the road collapsing or having collapsed, and you're sort of meandering around it to make sure you don't fall into a cavern. So we are seeing things like this in Jamaica, and certainly for me, and I know many other persons, the question is being asked, can I trust that this was properly constructed? I'm going to start with you, Mr. Kelly, and then Mr. Baston. Mr. Kelly, any thoughts? How do we meander through all of this? How do we ensure that these buildings, when constructed, we don't have to be second guessing and wondering if there's an issue with the building?
All right, Stokely, there's a process in design, because that's really where it starts. Your pre-construction phase, where you examine the site, you do the necessary geotechnicals, you determine the strength of the soil, and that kind of thing. That the loads on that helps to inform what are your foundation designs. So you may see different types of foundations depending on how heavy the building is and the type of soil. And there may be some other considerations also. You have professionals who are involved, registered professionals, to make the point here that if you're getting into those building designs, your professionals must be locally registered professionals. If it's designed in some other jurisdiction, a local professional must do the design review. And we can't overstate that. You can't just turn up with a drawing. The other thing too is that the municipal corporations don't accept, or they don't accept anything for approval without it being stamped by the requisite professionals. From there, you get into your specifications of materials, because you can see a building looking good and all of that, but the materials used in the building, you want to ensure that the specifications of those materials are met. So that's also critical. The aesthetics and such, that's the purview really of the architects, and the functionality that Robin can speak more to that, but it's absolute. I
want to raise something with you, Mr. Kelly. All the professionals were involved initially when the building was being constructed and everything was above board, it would appear. However, you could have two issues. One, you could have had some shortcutting along the way in the actual construction. Or secondly, maybe even after the construction, the building is now up, there might be an issue with maintenance. Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokely Marshall. We do apologize for the technical glitch we had a moment ago. We are having a conversation with Lenworth Kelly, President of the Incorporated Master Builders Association of Jamaica, and Robin Baston, Architect. And we do hope to have them back on in a moment. I think they're now coming back into the live stream. We do have a few minutes left in the program, and we want to ensure that, yes, let's continue the conversation, Mr. Kelly. We do apologize to you for that, sir, to Mr. Baston as well. Any response to the question, Mr. Kelly? You could have shortcuts along the way in the construction, and then even after the building is construction and is up, you could have issues with maintenance. How is the building being maintained, Mr. Kelly?
All right, so that was the next point I was going to get to. The construction process must be overseen by the requisite professionals to ensure, because they'll need to sign off on it, that it's complete according to the specifications, everything in the design and so on. Maintenance is largely where we fall down big time. And we have a bunch of issues around. We can see buildings like Cornwall Regional. That's a maintenance issue. Not saying it's going to fall down, but a lot of these buildings have to be maintained. There's this tendency for us to invest the capital to build a structure, and we do no maintenance. And we're heading back almost to square one when we don't do that. So it is critical, but you see, we tend to short the money on that side. We have the nice building now, so we, okay, fine, I will go in merrily along. So it is these things are really at the base of what we need to do. So once you get the building done, the professionals have signed off. Largely now they are out of the picture. Who is responsible for maintenance? Building owner, if it's a homeowners association, whatever the case might be, we must maintain, just like your body and your car. We must maintain buildings. They have to. They're not going to just stand up forever.
Indeed, Mr. Baston, bringing you in here, sir. I haven't forgotten you at all. However, Mr. Baston, look, you're an architect, and I know that architects are normally very meticulous in relation to ensuring that the design and even supervising sometimes the actual execution of the work is done according to specifications. Now, in relation to the structural integrity of buildings in Jamaica, what are the comments that you would have from your perspective? Because we are seeing designs where you have underground parking. We're seeing designs where the pools are on top of the building, some of these high-rise units. We are seeing where, gazebos are being put in place, and they are being put in place in some interesting sections of the building. And questions can arise. Suppose there's a crack one day in that swimming pool on the roof. Suppose there's an earth tremor and you have the building pancaking on the cars below. Mr. Baston, help us. What are your comments, sir? What guidance can you provide today on the Morning Watch?
Well, the first thing is that as Len, morning Len,
morning, Rob.
Can you hear me? Yeah, is that we actually have very high building standards in Jamaica, and this has been for a long time, because we have the double sort of double barrel thing of hurricanes and earthquake. We also have a very interesting scenario in Jamaica and a lot of the Caribbean, where, say in the United States, you could have acres and acres and acres, square miles of the same types of soil and conditions that they're working with. In Jamaica, you could have a 1 acre lot with 4 different types of soil types, some parts will be high, one part will have rock. An interesting case that came up with the question of design, structural design and such forth was when they were building Grand Lido many years ago. They took they took boreholes to determine where they could sink the foundations, but they didn't take enough boreholes. And just in that property alone, they then discovered, oh wow, some of the foundations were going to have to, the piles would have to go down 30 feet deep, and in other places it was only like about 4 feet deep. So we get that variation. So generally, our structural designs are compensate for a lot of things, which a lot of other places don't. So once you have a good engineer, and you shouldn't have much problems. Now the architect would come in, with a design, and certainly when you get into more complex buildings, a large building, tall buildings, and such forth, architects would generally and normally, and which is good practice, start to introduce the other professionals into that very early. You're doing a project. I remember a client had me looking at a property in Montego Bay. The very second time I go down to the site, after I've had an initial look at the property, the second time I'm going down to look at the property, I'm taking the engineer with me to say, what can we do on this kind of property? How are we going to deal with the structure? Because no matter what you design, at the end of the day, it's going to have to stand up. It's about safety, eh? Safety
Exactly.
always.
Yeah.
Yeah, safety first, safety last, safety always. An architect's design, I tell students all the time. I say, listen, if people can't use the building, it's not architecture, it's sculpture. Okay, and part of that usage is not just the design for people's ergonomics and lifestyle and living and being able to know where the light switch is or find a door. But part of that living is the security of knowing that my building isn't going to fall down around me, or the door is not going to fall off or something like that. Where the concern is in Jamaica is the unregulated construction. The construction that the parish council inspectors are not inspecting after it might have been approved. Because as far as I know, most, if not all, of these larger buildings that will go up, and we're not talking about the high profile ones that you're seeing all in New Kingston and wherever, okay? Those buildings will more than likely be very highly regulated. I'm talking about ones that are way up in the hills, or, like the one that fell down in Cristiano the other day in the rains. You can bet $1 million that there was no oversight on a building like that. There was no architect involved in a building like that. There was no engineer really involved in the building. Maybe at the initial approval stage.
Well, we don't know. Well, we don't know, Mr. Baston. We don't know.
We don't know. But that's what I'm saying. I would bet in many cases like that, because you see things going up and you can look at it right away and you go, there was no architect involved in that. And then do you remember the case of the building on Long Lane, where the gentleman kept building up floors and floors and floors, and then the parish council decided that they were going to stop the building eventually. This is very common, and in fact, that is one of that. I don't know what you call it, but that was a situation that happened in Egypt many years ago when they had an earthquake. Is that someone built a building, he owns the building, and he decides he wants to rent his roof. So he builds something on top of his roof. Somebody else, the person who is renting that one, decides, well, they want to rent their roof. And eventually you have a 5-6 story building, completely unregulated. So in Heliopolis in Egypt, when they had the earthquake, this is what, 20, 30 years ago, you had something like, 20,000 people killed in an earthquake because those buildings just came right down. So that is more my concern, is the unregulated construction in Jamaica, not the ones that clearly are very regulated.
I wish we had more time, but I do acknowledge that we did have some technical challenges. We have about a minute left. Both gentlemen, I'm going to start with you, Mr. Kelly, and then Mr. Baston. What do you want to leave with us in terms of the integrity of our buildings in Jamaica and the things we must look out for to make sure that there is not a situation of a sudden collapse of any of these buildings? I'm not talking about an earthquake. We're talking about a situation where the building is just there standing, all of a sudden it collapses, or a portion thereof. Mr. Kelly and then Mr. Baston. Mr. Kelly?
Well, I would recommend that you do structural inspections periodically, at least annually, the very minimum, serious structural inspections. We tend to, as we say, we tend to short on the maintenance because we can see in front of us the value of it. Well, certainly by the time you see the value of it, many may have died. So that is if I'm leaving one thing with us, we must do that, because you may have inherited a building, the building is already there. What do you do now? You hope it was built properly, but maintenance, we must focus on maintenance of buildings. Don't shorten it.
Understood. Mr. Baston, a minute, I think. We probably have a minute.
I agree totally with Lenworth. If it's a building that's existing already, get your maintenance checks. Get the right professionals to come in and do those checks. And if it's a new building that you're either building or interested in purchasing into or something like that, find out. Keep your professionals on board. Don't try and say, okay, well, I'm finished with the architect and the engineer. I don't need them anymore. I'll go ahead and build. Keep them on board, and if you're buying into a building, the developer needs to say to you, these are the people who are involved in the project. and that will help. You know.
Yes, because many people are buying into these buildings these days. Wish we had more time, but we don't. I want to thank Mr. Kelly and Mr. Baston for being with us today. Thank you for your time and for your thoughts and for your very valuable contributions. Thank you all listeners for being with us. Join us again tomorrow as we look at other topical and controversial issues. And visit our Love 101 FM YouTube channel and Facebook page and stay connected to us. Download our app and stay connected to us, as I indicated, the #1 gospel station in Jamaica. This has been the Morning Watch. Thanks to our producer, Kathy Gale, and to our guests. I am Stokely Marshall, and get back to Love in the Morning with Giovanni.
And the Morning Watch today was brought to you by Honey Bun. Big thanks to Honey Bun. It is now 8 o'clock, and it's time for the program Forward in Faith, brought to you by the Port